Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Phillips with the ISC. A quick intro of myself and my guest before we get started. I am originally from the Los Angeles area, and I have lived and worked in South Korea for 2 decades as an English teacher. I presently live in Busan and am particularly interested in the rights of workers and immigrants. I am also excited to talk to my guest, Walden Bello. Walden is a Filipino scholar, activist, and former legislator, renowned for his critiques of globalization, U.S. imperialism, and neoliberal economics. A Right Livelihood Award laureate and co-founder of Focus on the Global South, he has been a leading voice in linking struggles for economic justice, peace, and sovereignty across Asia and the world. All right, first off, the 1990s and 2000s was a period of deep globalization. The WTO and IMF attempted to open up economies and integrate them to the global economy by restructuring them. APEC emerged in 1989. How did APEC fit into this larger liberalization trend? What is its role today?
Yes, it's APEC was sort of originally intended to be this the trans-Pacific kind of organization that would link together, all these different countries in the, Western Hemisphere and the Eastern Hemisphere around free trade. And so it was a fairly ambitious program, and the aim of the United States at that point, which was very much the leader of globalization and really promoting free trade, was to get APEC to agree to the countries to a binding set of rules that would promote trade liberalization, investment liberalization. In other words, a kind of a borderless Asia Pacific. And that was basically foiled by Japan and China. Setting up this sort of rules, binding rules, and APEC then mainly persisted, and it's now over. I would imagine it's over 30 years old, mainly as a forum whereby governments would, send representatives to conduct dialogue around a number of different things like security policies, trade policies, immigration policies, without expectation that it would be the forum to create rules on these issues. So in the around 2008, 2009, there was an effort to again promote an Eastern Pacific, Western Pacific trade area that would have binding rules, and this took place mainly, under the Obama administration. And APEC became one of the main forums by which those rules were to be discussed and negotiated. But this was the Trans-Pacific Partnership that was supposed to be, the dream organization that would be the successor of APEC. And at the same time, there would be a relationship between the World Trade Organization, which was the prime agency of global trade liberalization, and APEC, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership. But that also failed because of the resistance put up by a number of different countries, and of course, U.S. labor. And one of the first things that that Donald Trump did when he became president in 2017 was basically take the United States out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations, and that killed the TPP. So, but APEC has persisted, and I think part of the reason that APEC has persisted is also its weakness and its strength, that people, organizations, governments go to it mainly to do informal discussions. There are no kind of binding rules that are expected to issue from it. They can spy on one another. They can sound out one another. They want to think what U.S., China's thinking. So it's sort of serve as this sort of informal forum for checking out one another, where things are at. So, so that's been both the strength, the reason for the persistence of APEC, as well as its weakness, because it really, does not issue in any, global or trans-Pacific rules for trade and investment.
That's very clear. That's very helpful. My second question for you. During the 90s and the 2000s, you coined the term de-globalization as part of a struggle against capitalist globalization. Today, Trump is supposedly carrying out a tariff war to bring back production to the United States. Is Trump, in effect, de-globalizing? If so, how is the de-globalization that you fought for in the 90s and 2000s different from today's de-globalization?
Yes, Trump definitely is deglobalizing, and basically, if we think of the globalization's objective as the borderless global economy, Trump basically is directly going against that, setting up high tariffs and really making everything transactional. And at this point in time, the World Trade Organization, which was supposed to be the major agency for globalization, is practically non-functional. So Trump is now a champion of unilateralism. Who cares what other countries think? There are no global rules at this point in time. Countries are treated differently, mainly on how they relate to the United States, and military and economic power are very much tied in to to national objectives. So it is a fractured world that is emerging. It is deglobalizing, and however, this is not the sort of deglobalization that I had anticipated back in the 2000s when I wrote Deglobalization: Ideas for a New World Economy. The main points that we put forward, and focus on the global South in that book, was that one, it was important to continue to be part of the international economy. We were not delinking, but important thing is, how do we use trade to fortify, to build capacity to the domestic economy instead of destroying it? And so how do we use internal trade, investment, finance, not to destroy local economies, but to strengthen them? And that was by giving them what we call policy space. The second thing is, we placed the priority on the domestic economy, and not not that production for export, because that's what globalization wanted to do, is turn economies mainly into producers for export. And we basically said that we need to bring the dynamism, the main engine of the economy from the export sector to the internal market. And to do that, you needed very important measures of both rational protection for your trade and controls of investment, as well as redistribution, so that you will have the internal market for consumption. And finally, we felt, the third principle was that countries should be able to join different cooperative organizations, regional or otherwise, based on if this regional organizations, different countries coming together, would allow them policy space to develop in a sustainable way, and not rob them of policy space, just like the World Trade Organization would do, which would reduce completely any sort of independent policy making for you. So, and finally, we did say that at that point, that in terms of the structuring of the domestic market, in terms of the internal market, that really should be something that should benefit all citizens, rather than just a few, and rather than just be the criterion for enjoying the benefits of the domestic market, should not be because of race or ethnicity, but equality for all. So that's a very different kind of de-globalization from the unilateralist, ultra-protectionist, militarist, and racist de-globalization that Trump is undergoing, is pushing in the United States at this point in time. So do you de-globalize? Yes, de-globalization is taking place, but you either go to the right or to the left. Okay, and this is the big choice, we think, among people at this point. The only other thing that I would like to emphasize here is the importance of civil society. And it's important that we have this counter conference to APEC happening in Gyeongju and in Seoul, because what we have in APEC is mainly the governments and business coming together. And so it's important to have this counter conference of civil society to create the pressures that the governments and business in APEC must respond to. It's very important what's happening there with this people's initiative around APEC. And it's happened, this people's initiative around APEC. Civil society participation has not only in APEC but in ASEAN and many other formations, is really a very, very important accompaniment to what the governments and business are doing. So I hope that the issues that really bother the world, like climate change, gross inequality, the rise of fascism, that this can be discussed in the civil society gathering, and this can then be brought as policy recommendations to push on the official gathering. So I really would hope that this would be the result of what will happen there in Gyeongju and in Seoul. in terms of the civil society gathering. I'm terribly sorry I can't make it over there for a number of reasons, but I wish you all the luck there, and I hope that you have a successful assembly.
Oh, wonderful. It's very insightful. And I agree with you about the point with civil society. It's completely correct. The last question I have for you. What do you think movements need to do today to fight for this democratic de-globalization, this left-oriented one?
Oh, well, I think that a lot of what's going to happen is how do you, because the kind of deglobalization that Trump represents is a kind of deglobalization that animates the right in so many different countries, both in the Asia Pacific and in Europe and in Latin America. And so the right-wing deglobalization is pretty much connected, to the rise of fascism in these countries, the rise of fascist populist governments. So I feel that it is going to be very important, to really be able to provide a vision and a program to people, a democratic vision and program that's much more attractive than what the right or Trump is offering. We should remember that the opposition to globalization, the critique from globalization came from the left, but that it was the right that ran away with it, owing to the fact that so many of the social democratic parties, the Democratic Party in the United States basically compromised with globalization, embraced globalization, even as it was destroying livelihoods, it was deindustrializing, and it was leaving workers without a political voice. So the reason that the MAGA movement, Make America Great Again movement, and similar movements in other countries made such inroads into the working class and basically won their allegiances away from the social democratic parties, was because they could no longer tolerate the compromises that the Social Democrats made with global capital, which meant austerity programs, unemployment, deindustrialization. So we've got to take back the banner of deglobalization from the right, and basically, that we must stand for democracy, we must, stand for equality, we must stand, for people not to be discriminated against because they're immigrants, and we must, stand for a state that really promotes not only the development in a sustainable fashion of the economy, but also creates equality, in the domestic market. So that's sort of the it's a big agenda, but basically we have to stand for the values of democracy, as and these related values, as the way to build a vision and a program, that will take back the banner of deglobalization away from the right. So it's the right has, at the moment, has the initiative on this, but I think we can do it. We just have to remember we began the critique of globalization. The right snatched it away, it ate our lunch. Now we have to take our lunch back.
Beautiful. By the way, for our listeners and viewers, I would recommend everybody try to look out for Walden Bello's short essay that he's contributing to this APEC alternative meeting that we have going, that he submitted in lieu of his physical presence there. It's an excellent essay, and I learned a lot and I enjoyed it very much. Thank you so much, Walden, for joining us today. And
okay.
I wish you the best, and I hope we can have another conversation like this in the near future.
Okay. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.